he added this subconscious instruction of, I don't know how you are going to find a way to create healing and transformation, change in your life. And so that little instructions starts the subconscious mind. Yeah, how am I going to do that? And the mind will, find ways of creating, because somebody wants to answer a question. So ask it a question. How are you going to get better? What can you do tomorrow to help yourself have a better day, a happier day, a more joyful day, a more productive day? And if you ask questions, your subconscious mind and a reticular activating system of your brain is going to, yeah, how am I going to do that? And all of a sudden you find ways of creating a better life.
Welcome to Supernormalize, the podcast where we challenge the conventional, break boundaries, and normalize the seemingly supernatural. Join me, CJ Barnaby, in the liminalist space to explore less charted realms of existence and to unravel the mysteries of life experience. Each episode, I'm blessed with the opportunity to talk to regular people from across the world where they openly share their understanding and wisdom in service to others. If you're looking to upgrade your life, you've come to the right place. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll bring you great transforming conversations each week. My treasured viewers and listeners, if you have a life story or healing modality or unique knowledge that you'd love to share, reach out to me at supernormalized@proton.me. Let's together embrace acceptance of the supernatural and unusual, what it really is, completely normal. Today on Supernormalized, we have Craig Meriwether. Craig is a hypnotherapist that I had the gracious opportunity to do some work with in the form of past life regression. Now, Craig is amazing at this work, to say the least. I'm actually experienced in Ericksonian hypnosis myself. I am a practitioner and also do NLP. And part of Craig's work is taking those tools and then enabling you as an experiencer to go back into your past lives. Now, why is that important? Okay, sometimes we actually come into this life with a bit of a signature from something that has happened before, and then that colors the story that the life is that we are living now. Now, that for me actually turned into an understanding of during the session of why I had such a distrust for authority, and also a feeling of not being alone in life, and also working from the background to make things happen. It was all in this story and the understanding that actually of that past life that I actually had. That came through in our session when we had that about 3 weeks before we recorded this interview today. We talk about the process of hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and also about past life regression in this show. It was an excellent show again, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So, be aware there is some hypnotic language in this. So, obviously don't take that entrainment as a part of your experience today, but to enjoy the discussion and all of the understanding that Craig shares. So, on with the show. Welcome to Supernormalized, Craig Meriwether.
Hey, CJ, how are
How
you?
are you? You're really good. Look, it's good to see you again.
Yeah.
We only talked, I think it was just on 3 weeks ago when we had the session that we're going to talk about today and the work that you do. You are, I would say, expert hypnotherapist in the
Oh,
way
thank you.
that
Well,
Well, look, I listen because I've actually trained in Ericksonian hypnosis myself, so I hear all of the technique and the way you pace and bring people down into the space that enables them to um, open up even more, I think is amazing. There's a lot of stuff in there that really just popped my mind in different ways. Like, oh wow, I didn't think of that way to do it. So
Oh, no.
I
Well,
really
thank you. I
enjoyed the
appreciate that.
session.
And I stand on the shoulders of giants. You know, a lot of the people I've trained with over the years and, do my continuing education, I always want to learn more. A lot of these people actually were able to train with Milton Erickson back in the day,
Wow,
back in the
awesome.
70s and 80s. And this is kind of like I'm working with the disciples of Milton Erickson and, doing workshops and conferences and things like that. And it's extraordinary stuff, and I appreciate your kind words. But it's a fascinating field to just, even if you're slightly interested, just to start looking at the books and the YouTube videos. There's a wonderful, since you mentioned Milton Erickson, a wonderful documentary about him called Wizard of the Desert. He uh, had polio when he was a little kid
Yeah, right.
and health problems most of his life. And so they, back in the day, you went to the desert to heal. And so he lived in Scottsdale, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, basically. Go visit his house there. If you're anywhere in the Southwest, you can go take a tour of his house. It's a
Oh,
little
that's cool.
museum now. But a wonderful documentary about him you could probably watch on YouTube called Wizard of the Desert
Mm.
and really see how he is still, and I think he passed away in the 1980s, but still to this day, so influential in psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, neurolinguistic programming is a big part of the foundation of neurolinguistic programming is Milton Erickson's work. So it's an
Yeah,
extraordinary type of therapy.
that's right. It was extracted by Brindler and Bandler into a series of
Yeah,
books by just
yeah,
sitting and
yeah,
studying him.
yeah. Well, and what's fascinating, I forget who was who, but one of them was a mathematician, the other was a linguist.
Mm.
And they met at University of California, Santa Cruz back in the early 70s, and they were some reason discussing their interest in therapy and the wonderful work of Milton Erickson and some of the other people who, that just came up with Gestalt therapy and Virginia Satir and all these wonderful therapists and how their language and and not just the words, but the tonality and the pacing uh, was creating extraordinary healing in people. And so in the early 70s, they correlated all of it as a academic will do. And at the end of their research, they had the foundations of neurolinguistic programming, which they
Mm.
developed. And then people like Tony Robbins
Yeah.
and Will Horton and a lot of these other guys who came around in the 1980s based their work on disseminating the information to the common folk. Because if you read those early books by Bandler and Grinder, they're very intellectual, they're academic books. They're
Yeah.
for written by PhDs for PhDs.
Mm.
And it was Tony Robbins started his career on disseminating that information to the rest of us. And that's,
Yeah.
a good chunk of why we know about it is because of Tony Robbins and Will Horton and some of those other people.
Mm. Well,
Yeah.
look, I mean, I started my journey with the understanding of these works was I actually was really interested in linguistics as a youth, and I started to look into what I could learn around that. And at the time in Australia, there was a trainer by the name of Tad James touring around, and it seemed like that it came along with the early stain of the understanding that it was used for selling things and picking up women. And I thought, well, let's just
Yeah.
try it. And it wasn't what I was about. I was more interested in helping people and change and creating change in people. And so for myself at that time, I was like, there was no trainers whatsoever that were doing that I could find. And this is before the internet, just so everyone knows.
Right.
And so I started picking up their books and reading their books. And And for me, they were like a spark. I was like, oh, wow, this makes so much sense. And I'd read about 6 or 7 books before I went to my first practitioner training level with a company by the name of Neuroads Proprietary Limited, who's I think still exist they're now in Tasmania. But when I was studying, they were in the inner west in Sydney. So I went for a training there and I was blown away. It was just exactly on point for everything that I understood about communication and listening and helping people to elucidate change through basically conversation. And that was the
Mhm.
beautiful part of it for me. It was like, because we all naturally do this to each other, but when you're conscious of it, you can actually help channel change in people that they may not see themselves doing. It's like because often, as you probably experience, people will talk about what they need in their
Yeah.
sessions, but they're doing it sort of subconsciously, and it just comes out,
Yeah.
and you just reflect it back to them, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh wow."
Yeah. 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 And yeah, it is really unfortunate. Neurolinguistic programming, NLP, was used, in the 90s and the early 2000s, as how to seduce women. And there'd be these 3-day conferences, workshops in Vegas for $5,000, and you learn how to seduce women in bars and use car salesmen and all that kind of stuff. And it's unfortunate because it's an extraordinary healing tool. And I sort of equate it, I was talking about this with somebody the other day. It's sort of like the Force from Star Wars.
Yeah.
The Force in and of itself is neither good nor bad. It's just the Force. But you can use it for evil and become Darth Vader, or you can use it for good and be Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker. And it has nothing to do with the Force in and of itself, but how you use it.
Mm.
And it can be as simple, though, as just adding little things like the word because to a sentence to help influence a person's direction of thought.
Mm.
You know, why don't you just take a deep breath in, close your eyes, because because you can allow yourself to move into a restful state, a relaxed state. They did all these studies about the word because, and they would be in a crowded bar, tables and bar stools up at the bar. And the experiment was to go up to people at the bar and get their stool, and using language, just conversational hypnosis, if you will. And I would say, hey, would it be all right if I sat in your seat because I'm really tired after working all day? And it's not 100%, but a majority of the time, 60, 65, 70% of the time, people would give up their stool
Wow.
because of the word because. They even did one where back in the day, you used to have in the libraries at the universities, you have to use the photocopier if you needed information from a book. And so there'd be a long line at the one photocopier, and you drop your nickels and your dimes and your quarters, at least here in America. And so there'd be a long line at the photocopier of all these people waiting to copy their information from their books, the university library. And the sociological students doing this experiment would walk up to the front and say, would it be all right if I cut in front of you? Because I'm in a big hurry. I have to get to the airport. My grandmother just passed away, but I have to get there. And they got it all the way down to, can I cut to the front of the line because I need to make copies? And people would still let them cut in front of the line. So it's police officers use this when arresting people. Can you turn around because I need to cuff your hands? And compliance arises. So it's a lot of this you can do during the healing work. Just allow yourself to close your eyes and relax, because you can go into a healing space within your subconscious mind and do all the healing work you're here to do. That kind of thing, and which was so extraordinary about Milton Erickson. He was just doing that,
Yeah.
and able to talk to people. And because of his tone and pacing and word selection and sentence structure, people would use their own subconscious minds to heal. A wonderful story one time about a I think this is in the documentary I was just talking about, psychotherapist who was training with him during the 80s or so, uh, and had his own practice, was working with a kid, a teenager who was being disruptive in class and going down the wrong path and was heading towards jail and all that kind of stuff. I was working with him, wasn't reaching him, wasn't helping him in any way. And he thought maybe Milton Erickson could help this kid. And I know he always on Saturdays has this kind of barbecue at his house for students and things. And I'll bring this kid and maybe Milton can, meet him and agree to work with him. So they go to the barbecue, the afternoon picnic at Milton Erickson's house. And this guy introduces Milton Erickson to this kid. And he said, call him Sammy. Sammy's really struggling in school and having problems and been arrested by the police a couple of times. He's heading towards a bad path. And I was wondering if you could help him. And Milton Erickson says, yeah, I don't know how you're going to find a way to help yourself and move forward in life, and then walked away. And the guy's like super disappointed. But in that sentence, he added this subconscious instruction of, I don't know how you are going to find a way to create healing and transformation, change in your life. And so that little instructions starts the subconscious mind. Yeah, how am I going to do that? And the mind will, find ways of creating, because somebody wants to answer a question. So ask it a question. How are you going to get better? What can you do tomorrow to help yourself have a better day, a happier day, a more joyful day, a more productive day? And if you ask questions, your subconscious mind and a reticular activating system of your brain is going to, how am I going to do that? And all of a sudden you find ways of creating a better life.
Yeah, because the subconscious mind itself actually doesn't know a negative. So you pose it with a question, it's just going to come back with positives.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's so dangerous though about that negative self-talk about, because if you say, why am I, something happens in your life at work and personal life, why am I such an idiot? Well, find answers for you. And what you practice, you get better at. And so if you keep asking, why am I an idiot? Why does everything go wrong in my life? Why am I so unhappy? You'll find answers. So why not ask a better question?
Yeah,
why
that's
am I
it.
so happy?
That's
Why am I getting more and more happy each and every day?
Hmm.
Why am I getting smarter each and every day and having fun doing it? Or how am I? How am I getting smarter each and every day and having fun doing it? How am I getting more joyful each and every day and having fun doing it?
Hmm.
That's a great question to ask, and what an amazing answer you're going to get.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And it might not even be conscious, that answer, but it starts playing out in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of those things. Yeah. It's unconscious. And then a couple months later, well, I am feeling better. I am feeling more at peace. I'm feeling more at ease. All I had to do was maybe get up a half an hour early and go take a walk around the block to just, get my body going. And I feel so much better. And I feel so much better. So I eat better. I eat better. So I go to sleep. All of a sudden you start creating the habits and the behaviors you need to feel better.
Hmm. How different is that
You
to
realize you're doing it.
how different is that to positive affirmation though?
I don't know. Maybe it's the same thing. It's sort of that thing of what's the difference between neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, and guided visualization. I don't, sometimes it's a really thin line,
Hmm.
and so it's really needing to add new instructions into your subconscious mind. And whether you're using visualization techniques, you're using conversational techniques, you're practicing, future visualization, you're healing the past. I don't know. I don't know what that line is. If a lot of the joke amongst the neurolinguistic programming crowd is if it works, then it's neurolinguistic programming. And so, but there's this kind of, thin line of where does one start and the other stop? I don't know.
It sounds like
Because you can do neurolinguistic programming with people in a crowded bar, obviously, if you can get them to give up their seat or whatever is happening.
mm,
And so it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in a quiet, calm, relaxed room with a recliner and the lights are down and let's close our eyes and drift off. That's nice for your nervous system because it calms down your nervous system and you feel better. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can do this work in a crowded airport with your eyes open. There was some research done during the American conflict with Iraq back in the early 90s. And there was all these triage helicopters coming from the front line to pull American soldiers off the front line if they got injured and to the hospital. And a lot of these guys were unconscious. They got blown up, they got shot up. And there was one helicopter that had a higher success rate than all the other helicopters in terms of keeping these soldiers alive to get to the hospital in time. And so obviously they're going to want to know what this triage nurse is doing as opposed to all the others, what she's doing differently. And they found out she was talking to the soldiers, even if they were unconscious. She would talk to them and tell them they're safe, that they're all right. They can, you're safe now. You can stop bleeding. You can
Wow.
slow your heart rate down. You can lower your blood pressure. You are safe now. You're in the helicopter heading towards a hospital. I just need you to hang on for another 5 minutes. And then we're going to get you to the doctor and into surgery. Even if they were unconscious, they would slow down their heart rate. They would, because she has them hooked up to equipment. So they have the proof of this. They would slow down their heart rates. They'd lower their blood pressure. They would stop the bleeding or slow down the bleeding at any rate. And so she had a higher survival rate. And they don't want to use the term hypnosis because that has so much baggage to it. So they call it verbal first aid. And you can go online now and find all sorts of books and articles about verbal first aid. And it's basically hypnosis, hypnotherapy, neurolinguistic programming, And again, it says even if they were unconscious, they were still following the instructions. So
Brilliant.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty stunning what the human body and the human mind can accomplish
Yeah.
just by giving it permission.
Yeah. Yeah. During my master prac course, the trainers were saying to us that if you get overwhelmed to the point where you need to have a nap, you got to have a nap on the floor in here, still learn. So they encouraged you if you felt overwhelmed and just too much and you're just starting to get tired from the day, just
Mm.
lay on the floor and have a nap. And people were doing that and they still learned. So it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's stunning. And again, a lot of it's just asking yourself a better question.
Yeah. Yeah.
How can I feel more at peace tomorrow and have fun doing it?
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
and your mind's gonna, well, okay, that's a good question. Let's find an answer to that.
Mm. So, okay. So when you work with people, you're framing it the right way to bring them into a better state of being. Have you found anything that this doesn't work for?
I personally haven't, and it's basically because I walk into a session knowing I'm not going to fix them, and that hypnotherapy in and of itself is not going to fix them. They're going to fix themselves. And so, what can you not fix? And not to blame the victim or say it's their fault or it shouldn't have happened. It wasn't fair. Whatever the hurt, the pain the person is going through, but in and of itself, they're the ones that created the response or the reaction to that trauma. And again, it's not to blame them. It certainly should not have happened. It wasn't fair that it happened, but they were the ones that created that response and held on to that hurt and pain, which actually ends up becoming very empowering because if they're the ones that created it, that means they can change it.
Yes.
And so if they're the ones that have the power, then you don't have to look outside of yourself. You don't have to look towards a counselor or a therapist or a pill or a drink or something else outside of themselves to help fix or numb. If you're the one who's holding on to the hurt and pain, and granted for safety and protection and to keep yourself in a survival mode, but if you're the one doing that, well, then you're the one who can heal and do something different. And so when I walk into a session, uh, I walk in thinking, okay, I'm going to help this person. I'm going to facilitate their healing. I may have an idea of some, because of the intake form, or maybe we had a conversation over the phone. And so I kind of have an idea of what they want to work on, or maybe an in-depth idea of what they want to work on. So I have some ideas on what to do, but if they decide to take it in a different direction, open up that, if they're doing a guided visualization and say, you're going to walk through a door and go to this healing place. Okay, well, the door's locked. Okay, well, let's find a different way. If that way is unsafe to you, let's find a different way. And sometimes it's just as easy as to ask, it's like, well, what needs to happen? What do you need to do to open that door? Or what do you need to do to get around that wall? And even if you didn't know, what would you do? What was your first impression? What is your subconscious telling you to do? And sometimes it's just as easy to ask, what do you need to do to heal this? Even if they're unconscious and unaware of what the root issue is, because maybe it happened when they were 5 or 6 years old, and they've been holding on to this hurt for years, if not decades. Maybe they're in their 40s now, and they went through some traumatic abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse when they were children. Maybe they don't even remember it. They just kind of have this gut feeling that things weren't great when they were growing up. Subconscious mind knows because it's holding on to it, because it's trying to protect you. It doesn't want to experience that again. So you know what the problem is. And more importantly, you know what to do about it. You know what the answer is. And so often it's just as easy just to ask, what do you need to do to heal this? Now that you understand the problem, what do you need to do to heal it? And you'll get an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Ask a good question, and you'll get a good answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you use this as a conversational technique, and I know that from my own experience that you also use this to help people recover from past life experiences.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very interesting form of therapy. Something I actually really enjoy doing. I kind of set myself up more on the clinical side of things, kind of like what we've been talking about here uh, for the last few minutes, is the more clinical side of things. But what I find fascinating is the ability for somebody to move into a past life and even the kind of more spirit world. And this isn't just kind of the woo-woo stuff. I live near Sedona, Arizona. If anybody in America is listening to this, or maybe around the world knows of Sedona, Arizona, it's a very new agey community amongst the retirees and the tourists. It's a very new agey kind of community. And so I kind of didn't want to brand myself that. I figured there's a lot of stuff with that. But what I find interesting is people will go to the point of origin. Now, can I prove in and of itself that this was a real past life, or is the subconscious mind created a metaphor to create healing? I can't prove that one way or the other, but according to a lot of the research that's coming out over the last 10 years or so, it seems the brain has the ability to access this information. Two of the really popular people who have done tons of research around this work. A lot of people come to me because they've read Dr. Brian Weiss's book. Many Lives, Many Masters is his most famous one. And he was a psychotherapist. And the story of Many Lives is Many Masters, he's working with somebody and they couldn't, around some trauma, couldn't find the trauma within this life. He kept doing some regression work and then sort of accidentally regressed her back into a past life, and then the healing happened. And so he started researching that, and over the course of the last, I mean, that must have been in the 80s or so, uh, when that happened, after researching, just you find that healing can happen with some of this more mystical kind of work. Even the wonderful Michael Newton, also a psychotherapist. He's passed away now. Dr. Brian Weiss is still alive. In fact, as we speak, as we record this, he is holding a workshop in the New York area at Omega Institute, that retreat center. He's still doing retreats, and he's doing one this weekend as we record this. But Michael Newton was also a psychotherapist, and in 1969 accidentally regressed somebody back to spirit world. Again, looking for some trauma, and thought regression therapy, kind of this therapeutic hypnosis technique would be helpful in healing this specific issue, doing some regression, and all of a sudden this guy went all the way back to spirit world, or what Michael Newton calls life between lives, sort of that soul state before we incarnate here on Earth. He found this utterly fascinating and wanted to see if he could do it again. And so he started working with people, finding a way to regress people back into spirit world. Spent a lot of time during the 70s working with people, just doing some research, doing some experiments, if you will, with their permission, of course, and found a protocol to help people get back into the state of spirit. And what he discovered is a lot of people were having the same experiences. Whether you meet with your soul group of friends, sort of like this group that you're with that grows as souls, as spirits, as we learn and develop. Sort of like you're going from first grade in school all the way to getting your PhD, but you're going with the same people, and you incarnate here on Earth to learn and to grow and to develop. And everybody plays different parts, sort of like a theater group that does 7 different plays during the year, and they all play different parts, and the plays have different plots. And so there's different learnings for these characters during these different plots, and everybody's wearing different costumes in different time periods. You sort of have this group of people that you kind of develop with. You may meet with your guide. You may meet with a council of wise elders. You may go to the library. You may go to the healing place. And, it sometimes looks different. Maybe it's more of an energy healing. Maybe it's more spiritual healing. Maybe there's water. Maybe there's light, whatever. But there's healing involved. What he was noticing is people were having the same experiences, going to the same kind of places, going to the past life viewing room, going to the current life viewing room, and finding out more about purpose and mission and ultimate goals. And so then he started developing questions about people's experiences. And so all during the 70s, he was creating this protocol to get people back to the state of soul, of spirit. During the 80s, he was working with people, finding their stories and finding how similar they were, no matter the age, no matter gender, no matter culture, ethnicity. And in 1992, he wrote a book called Journey of Souls. Highly recommend this book, because it goes through people's stories and not, it focuses on the lens of one person's experience, but it's in the book because multiple people. He worked with thousands of people over the course of a decade or so, and they were all having similar experiences. So that book was released. He then spent another decade doing research, asking questions, and then came out with Destiny of Souls, kind of the volume 2 that came out in about 2000, 2001, somewhere around there. 2002, he developed the Michael Newton Institute, which is still around. Michael Newton passed away in, I think, 2011 or so, but Michael Newton Institute is still around doing trainings, workshops, still writing books. And so in terms of this work, there's something healing about it. The subconscious, or that, and as well as your higher self or your inner wisdom, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it the super conscious level of mind, wants healing. And sometimes that healing comes from maybe a past life. And whether you believe in that or not, it's hard to ignore the evidence. I've worked with people who have healed physical pain. Physical pain I didn't even know they had, but they told me about days later when they emailed me, and I was checking up on them. Hey, how are you doing? What? It's like, well, I've had this hip pain for 20 years, and the doctors couldn't figure it out. And when I was up in the healing place in that soul realm, I healed it with my guides. And it's like, oh, I didn't even know that was happening. And so after a while, you just have to think there's got to be something to this work. Some of the science coming around points to the pineal gland in the brain. And I'm not, this isn't a biology class, certainly not a neurology class or anything, but pineal gland it deals with melatonin and your circadian rhythms, but it actually has all these crystals. If you some point when you have some time, Google pineal gland and crystals, and you'll see photos of these things. There's little tiny crystals. If you take a hair out of your head, these crystals are about 1/20th to 1/100th of a micron of a human head of hair, and there's millions of these in your pineal gland. The pineal gland is about the size of a grain of rice, towards kind of the backish. So if you see the middle, if you can picture the middle of your head is towards kind of the back of the middle of your head, if that makes sense. But there's no evolutionary need for these crystals. They have nothing to do with melatonin production, but they create when pressure is applied through like breathing techniques, so you start moving the cerebral fluid through your brain, it can create a pressure on the pineal gland and pressure on the crystals, and it creates an electromagnetic field, a measurable electromagnetic field. And this isn't like wishful thinking, or I read this in a science fiction book. This is science that has been published in peer-reviewed journals. An electromagnetic field can be measured around the pineal gland.
Hey, I just want to step in here for a second and say that if you're enjoying today's show, or you're enjoying all my shows, please support the show. I'd really appreciate it. It actually helps me to produce the show, and you'll get a shout out on a show, and also extra really cool things like raw episodes before they're released, and many more things at different tiers. So please support the show. You can do so now at patreon.com/supernormalized. Now back to the show.
Other research studies have come out, saying that information is not held within the brain, but that the pineal gland acts as a transducer. And really quickly, I'm no engineer, I'm no electrical engineer or anything like this, but back in the day when a television studio wanted to shoot a show up into the airways, so at let's say back in the day, at least here in America, in the 1970s, you could Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. you could turn it to Channel 10 and watch Happy Days or MASH or whatever the show was. And so a TV studio in Los Angeles, California, would shoot a frequency up into the air. And so it had this episode of Happy Days. And it would take that image, it would take that sound and put it through a transducer. That transducer would turn it into a frequency and shoot it out into the airwaves. I then have my television set at 8 o'clock on Tuesdays. I turn it to Channel 10, and my little antennas, my little rabbit ear antennas or antenna on my roof starts microscopically vibrating at the same frequency. And so it's attracting that frequency down to the antenna, where in my television, I have a transducer, and it turns that frequency back into images and sound, and I can watch my television show. And so what research has been showing is that the pineal gland seems to be a transducer, and it's bringing in information through what some call zero-point field, or the field, or it's that vibrational energy that binds all things together, what Star Wars calls the Force, or go back to Star Wars again. But don't take my word for it. One great resource that we all have is Google. And Google has a subsection where you can look at research papers published in peer-reviewed journals, scholar.google.com. So if you just go to Google, regular Google, and you put in the search field, you put in Google Scholar, probably, I'm guessing the first entry that comes up is going to be scholar.google.com. You go there, and all Google is going to do is search research papers on the subject you're interested in, whether just put in hypnotherapy, or just put in hypnotherapy and pain control, or neurolinguistic programming and healing acceleration, whatever you want to look for. But you can also put in hypnotherapy and past life regression, or something like that. And all these research papers, or the brain and past life regression, and these research papers are going to start coming up, or the pineal gland and zero-point field. All these different search terms, starts looking it up, and all those research papers are going to be at your fingertips, and you can go through this information yourself. So putting aside the scientific foundation of all this work, and that's maybe a different conversation for a different time, this healing work happens because you want it to happen. And so when we do past life regression work, we're looking for the healing in this life, the way I do it. How about that? How about put this like that? When I do this type of work, this more esoteric, mystical kind of work of past life regression and spirit world regression, what we're looking for is healing or insights or discoveries. But a lot of people come for healing because of the anxiety or the anger that they can't find, and their intuition is telling them maybe this is a past life, and they want to do a past life regression. That's the best way to come to this is your intuition. That's your subconscious tapping you on the shoulder. And it's like, I don't know, I just always got the impression it was from a past life, or my mother said I was born anxious, you know. And so, well, maybe there's some healing work around that. And what we're looking for is kind of a key phrase. And that key phrase may be go back to the past life that is most influencing this current life. It can be as general as that, or go back to the past life that is the cause of all this anger you're experiencing. Go back to past life that is the cause of this hip pain you're experiencing, whatever the issue is. Go back to the past life where I experienced this fear of the deep ocean. Maybe somebody grew up in a landlocked country, or up here like in Flagstaff, Arizona, up in the mountains, nowhere near the ocean or any body of water, and never left the city. Why would they be afraid of the ocean then? Like a deep-seated fear of the ocean. Well, maybe that could be some sort of past life issue. Yeah, maybe they watched a TV show, they saw Jaws when they were a kid or something, but maybe it's a past life regression. So there could be the phrase to help resolve this issue, go back to the past life where I created this fear around the open ocean. And that phrase is sort of like the key to the hotel room. There's 80 rooms in a hotel, in a big skyscraper hotel in a big city. And if you don't know what hotel room you're going into, you're just kind of randomly walking around looking for your room. Well, they give you a key. So you know what floor to go to, what room to go to, what door to open. That's what we're looking for. What do you want to search for? What healing do you want in this current life? What insights or discoveries are going to help you in this current life? That past life you'll experience through maybe a visual uh, means, by maybe you're seeing it like a movie, or maybe you're really experiencing it like you're really there, or maybe you just get vague impressions, but you'll be getting information about this past life. Of course, this past life may be 90 years. Maybe you lived 90 years in that specific past life, but of course, we can't go through all 90 years. So we'll go through 4 or 5 different significant events in that life that have to do with the issue you want to heal. Let's just say the person's dealing with a lot of anger, a lot of rage in their life, and they can't find a root issue, a cause, foundational issue in their current life. So their intuition is telling them it must be a past life. So we're going to go through 4 or 5 different significant events that have to do with creating the anger they're experiencing in their current life. Eventually, we'll get to the end of that life. And this is where a lot of the throwing action is the fancy term, is where this is why you're feeling anger in this current life. What are the thoughts? What are the feelings you're experiencing as that life ends? How is it ending? Is it old age? Is it illness? Is it violence? Is it injury? Is it something else? What is causing the death? What are your feelings at the moment of death? And you're experiencing this in some fashion, in a safe way, in a gentle way, but you're receiving these thoughts, you're receiving these memories, receiving this information. This is what I'm feeling. This is what's going through my mind. Are you making any sort of um, promises on how you're going to deal with life? Are you creating any sort of thoughts around family or money or relationships or authority figures or work or business? What are you feeling about these aspects of life as your spirit leaves the body? Because this could be the throwing action into the current life. As the soul leaves the body, find out something, what are you feeling? Are you feeling like an energy, a light, or something else? How do you feel as a soul? And then move up to the gateways of soul world. And people may experience it differently. Maybe they're moving through a tunnel. Maybe they're feeling like they're moving through light. but they move to the gateway to spirit world. And when you're there, who greets you? Do your friends, does the show group greet you? Does your guide greet you? Do other people greet you? And then what happens? Where do you go? And there's a lot of questions. I follow the Michael Newton protocol on how to do this work. But what do you need? What needs to happen? Is it now time to go to the healing place and let go of that hurt and that pain that maybe you experienced in that past life? Do we need to go to the past life viewing rooms and see if there are other lives where this thread of anger or rage or whatever it is you're looking for, maybe it's going across several lives, uh, uh, even this current life, and what needs to be done about it to heal it? Maybe it's just pulling out the cords of it all. So now you're disconnected from it all, and you can be free from that and allow whatever healing beings or healing energy or healing light or whatever the person is experiencing to finally end the anger or end the anxiety or the healing. And we can also go to current life viewing room while in that soul world. What's your mission? What's your purpose? What's your goals? Why this mother? Why this father? So it can have a lot of healing, can have a lot of insights and a lot of discoveries, and people walk away and even, while you certainly get a lot of information during that session, uh, the insights keep coming, in the weeks and the months. You may be walking by a bookstore and you notice in the bookstore window some cover of a book, which brings a lot of insights to you. Oh, a picture of that book that makes me think of this, which brings this aspect of my past life regression even clearer, makes it more clearer to me. And so the insights keep coming weeks and months later. And so that was a brief little, I mean, maybe not so brief, but kind of uh, an explanation of how not only does a past life regression work and spirit world regression, but even a little bit about how it's actually possible. People will have the experience they need to have to create the healing they need to have. But I've, worked with, I don't know, so many people, and they have similar experiences of going to this same kind of places, and doing this, similar kind of healing work, and whether they experience it as water or energy or light or, disconnecting by pulling cords or whatever, they experience healing, and you email them months later and say, how's it going? It's like, it's fantastic. It's gone. It's the anxiety, the anger, the overwhelm, the worry, the malaise is just gone. And it's an extraordinary healing experience, that I wish everybody could experience it. And this whole thing, I think you mentioned this at the beginning at some point, but this whole thing is like taking like 3 hours. And while that may seem like a long time, it actually goes really quickly, as and spend a little bit of time talking about what you want to work on. We'll do a little warm-up exercise to kind of relax the body and kind of, warm up your five senses, if you will, and take a little break if we need to. But that's like just a half an hour, 35 minutes. And then the rest of the time's the past life regression. So it's about 2 hours, 45 minutes, something like that. And the information you get is extraordinary.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can speak about my session, but you were so nice to allow me to experience. And like I was, talked into a very deep hypnotic space in very little time. I know I am actually a really good hypnotic subject, so that makes it easy. But I went into that space and I didn't expect to, or actually I didn't know what to look for, to put it honestly. And with your guidance, I was taken back into the past life that most influenced this life. And, to put a frame around that, in this life, I've had a distrust for authority and how would you put it? Several little things actually relate to that made me go, life is a bit difficult, a bit challenging in certain ways that did create sort of like a bit of a restlessness and anxiety that was an undercurrent tone for a lot of my life. And I didn't know where that came from. But taking me back, I was put into a past life, and impressions came to me, then visions of what had happened to me. And to put it plainly, it just tied in so beautifully. It actually even made me realize that a lot of my personal astrology, which obviously gets set in stone at your birth, came directly from that experience.
Yeah.
So, I like to be a person in the background making things happen, and that's a part of that story as well. And yeah, just to be afraid to speak up as well. That was a part of that story as well, and that came as a part of that experience. And I think this life had been um, given to me to actually realize that and to move through that energy and through that information and through that understanding, change and bring that change to the world. So I feel from my session that I've helped to crush that sort of underlying anxiety that is a part of my life, and also that strange restlessness that comes from the fear of what's happening next. Which came from that story. And looking back on that story, I was like, wow, that's everything that actually happened to that person that was me then was right on point. Exactly right on point. And yeah, I got to thank you for that. That was mind blowing.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah.
Yeah.
It, it's always extraordinary to work with somebody in that way. And just to be clear, I'm not telling you what your past life. I'm not reading you
No.
or reading the universal tea leaves or whatever and telling you what your past life or past lives were. Nor am I, you know, giving the healing to you. You're doing it yourself. I'll ask questions and I may ask some leading questions. Um, but the information you gain from that past life establishes, oh, I get it now. I understand why the anger, the issues with authority figures, the feeling that I'm not worthy or I'm not loved. I get it. I brought it from this experience that I'm now here in this life to heal.
Yeah.
And then as you get to that end stage of that past life and you pass in that past life, now you have the opportunity not only to even gain more clarity around the issue, but to actually heal it.
Mm,
And you're doing it.
that's
Yeah,
right.
I'll ask questions specifically for the recording. Um, because again, this is, 2.5 hour, 2 hour, 45 minute kind of process.
Yeah.
And while you're consciously aware of it and you'll remember it and be able to talk about it or write it down afterwards, it's like watching a 3 hour movie,
Mm,
like one of those Marvel movies that's 3 hours long. So are you really going to remember every little tiny section of it? And so what's nice about the recording is, if you want to listen to it 6 months from now or a year from now, you're describing your experience. What does it feel like to be in spirit form? What is it? Where do you go for the healing? Or, I've had people go to this library. They've like just randomly go to this library, which is it's extraordinary because Michael Newton will describe it. Some people go to this library and there's just books everywhere, and you can take out books so you can gain more information about yourself or whatever issue you want to become enlightened about. This person did that. And as I'm asking, well, what does the books look like? And what book do you need to open? Oh, I need to open this one that's already out on the table. Okay, open it up. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's written on the page? How does the page look? So, maybe 6 months from now they won't remember exact details, but now they have a verbal narration they're giving about it. They're like, oh, that's right. That book looked like that.
mm,
And I remember it had this crazy writing, but here's the information I gained from it. And so you're narrating your experience throughout. But I'm sure, just with my own experience of this work, you're narrating probably, only a fourth of what you're experiencing because it's so extraordinary. You can
mm,
only uh, detail so much, but it's a fascinating experience. And like you said, it's healing.
mm,
For an extraordinary reason, you can create healing in this manner because I think we're here to learn, we're here to grow, and oftentimes we're here to maybe deal with the issues of something that maybe didn't go so well the time before.
mm, mm,
Not unlike maybe, well, now that I'm in my first year of college, I could see how high school I was, things didn't go so well because I was kind of mean to people. So I can fix this now that I'm in, that's maybe not the greatest analogy in the world, but as we're learning and growing, you know, we can see how training in this way, we can get new information by coming back to different lives and
Mm.
learning in new ways. And it doesn't necessarily mean this is even a linear experience, because if, let's say, I, as Craig Meriwether, pass in this life here in, way down the line, hopefully in 2050, um, uh, and I just, I feel like it's time to return to Earth to learn more. Maybe I decide, I think this time I should go back to 1820, or maybe I should go back to the year 500, or maybe I should go back to 3 AD, BC or something. So I don't even think this needs to be linear. Why not experience, World War II from different viewpoints? It doesn't necessarily mean you have to, well, my last life was back in the 1800s, and then I went to 1920s, and then it was the 1960s, and now I'm here in the 2000s. Why not experience, to gain that learning and that knowledge and information? Why not experience World War II, as a French person living in Paris, or a Jew living in Poland, or as a German living in Berlin, or as, a Japanese uh, uh, living that experience, or an American. Why wouldn't you have different experiences around it so you can get more learning? And so maybe you go down to different time periods and experience in different ways, or maybe it's random, or maybe you do go linearly. If you were to look up, the records of your past lives, oh yeah, I can see how I went, from, early on in the ages to right now.
Mm. And this is
It's interesting.
not necessarily a single session either. It could be something that you need to come back and find more information if you find other things that you wish to work on. And I also want to make sure that people understand that we did this remotely. So,
Oh yeah, yeah,
you're in Arizona and I'm in, Southeast Queensland, on
yeah,
top of a mountain, and I just set myself up on a super comfortable lounge in my own comfortable space, with a camera on my face, and so Craig could see me
yeah.
and how my body was responding, and a microphone. And not just, I've got the microphone set up for my podcast. Doesn't necessarily have to be that. It could be just as something as
No.
simple as, a little plug-in headset or whatever that you've got for your
Yeah,
phone
just your
or
your
Zoom.
computer, yeah, whatever your laptop or computer uses. It's everybody's computers is so extraordinary nowadays. But yeah, we did this
Mhm.
over Zoom, different time zones, different
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
I think I was on a Saturday and you were on Sunday, and it was and yeah, while it's fun to like do it in person, it's Zoom sessions, and whether it's something as deep as doing a past life regression, or just more clinical therapeutic hypnosis, or even talk therapy, or a doctor's consultation, something like that. It works well over Zoom, because what the sociological research has shown over the last 4 years or so, since a lot of these sessions have gone to Zoom due to the issues of the world back in 2020, uh, people feel relaxed and comfortable in their homes. They feel safe in their homes. And so Zoom sessions work as well as in person. In fact, there are studies that show that Zoom sessions work better than in-person sessions, in-person appointments. And
Mhm.
so, while yeah, it's fun certainly just to have that interaction in person, is like this work actually may be work a little bit better by being a Zoom session, because you feel comfortable in your home. You feel safe in your home. You feel relaxed in your home, and got a good internet connection, got a phone or a computer or tablet or whatever, laptop, whatever you're using. It works. And again, like, we record it, and so you can return to it later on. So yeah, it's a pretty journey process. There's this one. If you go to my website, my regular website, quote unquote, Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy, there's a testimonial on there from Samantha, And it's on the front page, if you go to my past life regression page, it's on there too. But and she says something like, this one session was more healing than 6 years of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
And it was a past life regression session over Zoom.
Wow.
And so
That's a
it's
huge
pretty extraordinary.
testimony. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And so again, what I find extraordinary about this work of therapeutic hypnosis or neurolinguistic programming, or what do you want to call it, is that, again, I'm not here to fix anybody, nor am I here to tell you what your past lives were. You're here to fix yourself, or you're here to gain those insights and those discoveries yourself in the way you need to do it. Because again, who better to know what you need to work on than you, and who better to know what to do about it? And that's why those questions, those leading questions, maybe up in when that person's experiencing the spirit world, like, well, do you need to go to the healing place now? Yeah, I think it's time to do that. Okay, and how are you experiencing this? Some people experience it as an energy, a light, water, or something else. How are you experiencing it? And then, okay, I'm experiencing like this, and then what's happening? Or I'm going to give you some time. And that was a couple of instances during your experience. It was like, I'm going to give you some few moments of silence for you to do the work you need to do. Because I know, to narrate an extraordinary experience like that is difficult when you just want to experience it. And so I'll have pauses for minutes at a time so people can experience it. And God, I mean, and you reach out to them a week later, a month later, and say, "How are you doing?" They're like, "My God, it's extraordinary. You feel lighter, you feel more at peace, you feel more at ease, you feel more free." And you also get this sense of, you know, you're a part of something important. Even if yesterday you thought, "Oh, what's so important about the job I do?" Or, I'm not a head of industry, or a big time brain surgeon, or whatever, rocket scientist. I'm not curing cancer. But you come away from from that experience of not only that past life regression, but that soul world experience, realizing that you're here for a purpose. A good chunk of the people understand that purpose, that ultimate goal, that mission. It may be you're not supposed to know at this point. That's why it's so fascinating that maybe somewhere down the line, in 6 months or a year from now, the car passes you and you see a bumper sticker, like, oh, I get it now. Now's the time that you need to learn what purpose is. But we'll always ask. And then it may come back as like you're not supposed to know at the moment, just because of the journey you're on in this current life. But the insights you gain, the healing you gain are pretty extraordinary,
Mm.
and continue on for the rest of your life. Once
Mm.
you've had that experience and you realize you're part of something bigger, it's pretty profound, pretty powerful.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I actually did find for myself this ever pervasive feeling of more of satisfaction with everything. And I couldn't explain it. I'm like, everything's really good.
Yeah,
And it's good just as it is.
yeah,
There's this desperate reaching that used to be a part of life that seemed to have gone. It's like, it's not like I'm not motivated. It's more like, no, this is all okay. And it's
yeah,
okay in such a way that life is good.
yeah. And I understand that life is painful sometimes,
Hmm.
and there's trauma,
Yeah.
and people have gone through abuse, serious abuse, and serious hurt. And it's not to say that was your fault, or maybe that you even chose that. But when you go through this experience and you get deeper insights on, okay, now that I've experienced, how can I heal? And what insights and discoveries can I take from this experience? Knowing that maybe it was set up to create healing and learning and new discoveries about myself so I can use it somewhere else in the soul world, sort of like a computer simulation or a flight simulator. A pilot who needs to fly to London next week. and they've never been to Heathrow Airport or wherever, they're going to get on a flight simulator and practice. And so they're going to pretend, but it's going to be pretty realistic. And what happens if there's turbulence while they're flying over the Atlantic, or what happens if it's at nighttime and they switch runways on them at the last minute, or any sort of, what if it's raining, and they're going to have to go practice all these different scenarios, because when they actually do it, now they're prepared. I mean, maybe that's what we're doing here. We're learning something that we need someplace else. We're learning how to heal through extraordinary circumstance.
Yeah.
We're learning how to heal pain and hurt because we need to have that skill somewhere else. Where, I don't know. But if this is a training ground, and we're here for learning and for development and for growth, and we've brought our soul friends with us to play various parts, whether they're brothers and sisters or parents, or that one teacher we had back when we were 16 for one semester at school that really influenced us. Whoever these people, maybe they're even playing the villains. Every learning experience may require some sort of villain. Somebody has to play Darth Vader, in order for the story to progress. Doesn't mean, I mean, what an extraordinary, gift to give somebody to have to be that person.
Yeah.
And that's a mind twist too. That's
is.
a huge mind twist when you start thinking about it like that. Somebody chose to play that part, and maybe that wasn't fun either. So you can get a lot of insights, a lot of extraordinary insights around life, and maybe why pain and hurt happened. And that doesn't excuse it. Doesn't mean have to be buddy buddy with everybody. It may still be that you need to keep yourself safe from certain people, or maybe keep the certain boundaries up. But if you can gain insight and healing, it takes that heavy armor off, and you feel freer, and you feel lighter, and you feel more ease, and it just makes life a little brighter, I think.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
So, Craig, we've come to the end of the show, and you did drop your link there before, but can you just say how people can find you?
Yeah, I live in Flagstaff, Arizona, here in America. The name of my business is Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. I also give advice to other businesses who want really long, unrememberable names that are hard to spell. So drop me a line, and I'll that's a free service I offer to people. But the name of my business is Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. The best way to find me is just to Google Flagstaff hypnosis, or Flagstaff, Arizona hypnosis, and you'll see me come up. Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy, that's me. And strangely enough, just thinking about names no one can remember or pronounce or spell, my more esoteric website is called Divinus Arcana. And I can shoot you the link, and you can put it in the show notes. But that focuses more on the past life regression and soul world regression, and connecting with guides and things like that. But I'll shoot you that one
That'd be cool.
too, CJ, once we're done. But Google Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy or Flagstaff Hypnosis, and you'll find me.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Craig, for coming on the show, and also for the session that you graciously gave to me. That was so cool, and I've learned so much from it myself, and the amount of information that you've shared again here in the show to help people understand the benefits of deep hypnotic therapy is, it's beautiful, and I'm sure a lot of people will actually enjoy.
I really appreciate your trust and vulnerability to do that work, because it's deep work. And so I appreciate your trust in me, and your willingness to do this deeper work. And so I'm glad we were able to connect and do this. And yeah, let's keep in touch and do some more work together, and do some other stuff. Yeah.
We will do. We will do. All right. I'll just say goodbye to listeners. Well, that was a really cool session with Craig. Look, I'm really touched by Craig that he actually, when we first got in contact, he reached out. He said, "Would you like to do a session first? I mean, it's probably the best way to understand exactly what I do." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that'd be really cool." I've thought about doing this before. I've done past life regression, or I should say more like timeline therapy, which is more of a part of hypnosis and NLP with people, but I've never actually taken somebody so far into the past. And I thought, what could happen? And from what I understood by looking at Craig's website and the information he had presented, that if anything, it could actually help for me to understand more about myself. So I went with it. And as a result of that, it helped me to relieve myself of some of the life anxiety that I had for myself for pretty much most of my life in one session. So that's wild, and I'm so glad that he reached out and said that. So now we've just recorded the interview around that as well. And I hope you've enjoyed today's interview. If you have, and you wanted to reach out to Craig and either have a session or even say, hello, thanks for being on the show, please do. And the details for that will be in the show notes. And it's Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy, as he mentioned. And yeah, if you've also enjoyed today's show and you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. And if you really liked the shows that I present and you want to actually help me to make these shows, you can jump on my Patreon at Supernormalized on Patreon. So just search for Supernormalized on Patreon. You'll find it. That's patreon.com/supernormalized. And for as little as $5, you get the shows raw before they actually get to go out. So that way you can actually enjoy all the extra pre-talk and post-talk as well. And get a shout out for joining as well, which is really cool. And there's different tiers, which actually have more offerings and opportunities. Anyway, so thank you so much for listening to the show. And if you've enjoyed it too, please share this to a friend. I'm sure somebody out there that would go, "Oh, wow, that's a cool show too." So please do that. That'd be very, very appreciated. And until next episode, it's bye for now.